Hi everybody, I'm back with another video, and today I want to talk about the no excuses grind set versus your higher self. And in a nutshell, I just want to kind of discuss setting yourself up for success in pursuit of your higher self or an elevated state of being. So let's get on into it. I mean, I think it's never too late, and it is not too late right now to identify your complacency and to choose to do something about it. I think an idea that we're going to be coming back to quite a bit, probably on my channel as a whole, is setting yourself up for success. And for me, that means planning accordingly and mitigating risk. Now, I know that it's sounding pretty serious at the moment, but it is. I think this is a serious matter, and it's something that I feel passionate about and something that I would like to resonate with more people in a way that's beneficial and sustainable. So I'll be using exercise as an example throughout, but this approach can also be applied to any number of things you want to improve and own in your own life. So if we're going ahead with the exercise example, and I know this is going to sound like the most obvious thing and, why is she not telling us anything new? I just feel like it's worth just getting to grips with basics and accepting that the most obvious aspects of this and being able to move on from that point instead of assuming an understanding that you haven't been able to reconcile in real time. So, for instance, if you know that being tired in the morning will put you off embarking on a workout, then it's important to make that conscious effort and make the conscious decision, even if it means saying it out loud to yourself or telling somebody that you're going to do it, to go to bed, for instance, an hour earlier than you normally would, and limit screen time prior to that to calm your nervous system, because that way you're mitigating that risk. You're planning accordingly by choosing ahead of time to go to bed earlier than you normally would, and you're mitigating risk of not being able to fall asleep by reducing your screen time, and also mitigating the risk of not being able to show up for yourself the next day and not being able to get out of bed in time to commit to that workout, and then just continuing that cycle of complacency and excuses when you have missed an opportunity to set yourself up for success. I think another aspect of setting yourself up for success that's important to consider is that you'll need to understand that it's going to feel uncomfortable and anticipate that feeling of reaching for the easy option. Primarily screen distraction. I think that deserves to be called out, especially, and I think you should be able to fall back on the decision that you've made and have committed to, and to be able to fall back on your bigger reason why. And this could be that your higher self wouldn't accept giving in so soon to your own detriment. It's crucial to be able to recognise this as the complacency-fueled self-sabotage that it is, and opt out of that thought pattern once in that moment and as many times as necessary as it occurs after that. Now, don't even think about being silly and doing yourself the disservice of trying to trick yourself and be like, oh, I'm going to take a nap and then I'm going to go work out. If there's a fraction of you, even a tiny fraction of you, that knows that you're low-key not gonna follow through, what is the point in that? Let's just show a bit of self-respect, just a shred, please. Let's not act blind to this trickery, this self-inflicted trickery. Come on, nip that in the bud and don't allow yourself the opportunity. Decide what matters more in that moment. Challenge yourself with that decision to make, with that path to reckon with. Reflecting your higher self by honouring your commitment to building up your mental strength, or staying comfy in a state of complacency and growth aversion. Truly, what matters more? Again, I think it's important to recognise in a state like that this is going to feel uncomfortable, and that's normal. And it's going to feel strange and difficult, and that's fine. It's what you do. Recognizing that when it comes to making that choice and making that decision, again, this is all in your hands. You have the final say. You have complete control. And the final aspect of setting yourself up for success by planning accordingly and mitigating risk that I'd like to introduce to the discussion is to commit. Showing up for yourself and building that self-trust and that self-respect back up. You want to become known to yourself as somebody who keeps their word and makes their commitments work. And this will become clearer as I get further into this topic, but this is where having that balance of flexibility and discipline really comes into play and can help your vision flourish in the end. Now, to bring the whole no excuses GRINDSET thing to the fore, I think that while this GRINDSET attitude is really effective with some people, sometimes it can be really off-putting for others, which is obviously to be expected because we're all wired differently. Like, the whole no excuses mantra is a big motivator for some people, and I'm sure that a lot of people can actually testify to this being a mindset that has got them out of bed and in the gym, or has kept them on track with their projects and any challenges that they've set for themselves. And those are real perspectives and lived experiences, so I'm in no way slating that. To reiterate, this is really effective for many different people in a variety of different contexts. At the same time, I do think it can be off-putting for some people to hear, no excuses, and I think, sometimes it can come across, a little bit too strict to the point of, wanting to rebel and be like, well, actually, I can have excuses because I have a unique situation, you know what I mean? And, I, for one, think I have a foot in each camp, and I think that viewing these personal commitments through a no excuses lens can actually be very liberating and a great way to exert self-discipline for at least a limited period of time. That's my perspective on it. But when it comes to developing a long-term practice of self-discipline and sustaining that over a long period of time, several consecutive months into years, I think it can probably be quite tricky to reconcile that mantra with the unpredictability of life and the novelties that come with day-to-day living. A lot of the time, every day feels the same until it doesn't. Factors compound, and that can have an effect on us physically and mentally, because the body and the brain are connected. This isn't new, but it's definitely worth identifying and accepting as a truth. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be using exercise throughout as an example, just because it's an easy one. And quite relatable for a lot of people. And for me, a really easy example for this is the menstrual cycle and exercise. So, for example, I am acutely aware that when I'm in my follicular phase, right after my period, I'm feeling more energized and probably the most energetic I will be for the rest of my cycle. And this is because my estrogen levels are rising back up. Therefore, while it might be physically and mentally easy for me to then go on a run at that time and think, yeah, that was really good, I'm gonna do that and some more every day for the rest of the month, no excuses, let's go, save for obviously a couple rest days, it's very unlikely that I'll have the same attitude on day one of my period when my cramps kick in and my muscles are aching from literally climbing the stairs and I'm at least 50% more tired at rest by default. But instead of that inevitability coming around and me realising that I'm held to the no excuses GRINDSET and either pushing through out of arbitrary obligation or completely falling off the workout wagon for a week and then picking up the pieces once again, I propose another approach called meeting yourself where you're at. And this isn't a cop-out by any means, it's a built-in contingency plan. And for any of you Duolingo merchants out there, think of it almost like a streak saver, except you don't skip anything. For instance, through tracking my periods and logging my symptoms, I can know almost exactly when to expect to experience varying ailments and just physical conditions in relation to my cycle. So I'll know that in the week or so, right after my period, my energy levels are going to be significantly higher, and I'll be probably more physically and mentally capable of pushing myself harder during exercise. Obviously, this isn't a hard and fast rule by any means. It's just something that's worth observing during your own hormonal cycles, whether that's your 24-hour testosterone cycle or your 28-day menstrual cycle. Obviously, cut the cloth according to your size. And with that knowledge, I can plan my workouts accordingly and opt for trail running or a more challenging bouldering sesh at the climbing gym. Like I said at the start, it's all about planning ahead and setting yourself up for success. So similarly, on the flip side, when I look at when my period's due, I've had enough of them at this point to know that day one is physically and mentally the most taxing for me. That's just a fact in my reality. And that's not to say that I wouldn't benefit from exercise at this time. Obviously, it's important to rest during your menstrual cycle, but this can mean different things for different people. And it just becomes a question of what exercise to choose and commit to. So there's no point setting the bar so high that the probability of following through and wanting to repeat that action is significantly lower, especially when you're just trying to build that foundation of better habits. Make it achievable and make it worth your while. Make a case for it and justify it to yourself instead of just seeing it as something to tick off. So, for example, I've actually recently been working on making and adapting my own exercise schedule just in my calendar, and for day one of my upcoming period, I've opted for a session of Kundalini yoga, and I'm going to see how that works for my body and my mind. And I chose it because I'd read briefly that it helps release tension and trapped energy through the various pose sequences and breath work. And I figured that if I like it, then this can be something that I can then have as a reliable and recurring fixture in my exercise schedule on day one of my bleed. Of course, then, as my symptoms alleviate and my energy slowly begins to rise as I progress through my menstrual phase towards the end of my period, I can work up the intensity of my yoga practice, for instance, opting for more intense vinyasa flow on days 2 and 3, and maybe plan to reintroduce some climbing sessions just to, keep up the momentum. Ultimately, though, sometimes over-planning is a slight killer, and I find it helpful to have a short list of physical activities to be able to pick from, depending on how I feel on the day, which I find really useful in introducing the element of choice and offers an opportunity for me to listen to my body while still adhering to a no excuses attitude, because that commitment that I've set is being met. And even if you don't have a menstrual cycle, I still think that this can be applied to other life experiences and scenarios, like if your car won't start and you can't get to your place of exercise, or if you need to be up early to commute to work, or if you have social plans or family commitments that evening. Really look at the time at your disposal and be open to flexibility. If you plan to do an hour session but only have half an hour free, then do half an hour instead of throwing the whole thing on the discard pile and having to drum up the mental energy to commit to yourself again. Whatever you can do to keep up that momentum is so worth it, just to reinforce that self-trust, self-respect and confidence in yourself as an individual. So, to summarise, I suggest identifying your area of complacency or stagnation and make the choice to do something about it. Set yourself up for success by planning accordingly and mitigating risk. Meet yourself where you're at. Remember, this is all about you and you are in complete control. Listen to that voice and work with what you have. Beware of self-sabotage and making excuses that will make you feel good now and worse later. Have a contingency plan on standby. Make a short list of your favourite forms of exercise to fall back on and choose whichever best suits your situation at the time. And finally, commit. Make it work. Do whatever means you get to keep that promise to yourself, and crucially, build that relationship with self. I hope this was useful, or at least somewhat interesting to someone out there. I'm really interested to read your thoughts on this in the comments, so please let me know what you think, and we'll meet again on my next video. Bye!